This is Manoj from Lambda Test, and I'm playing the VP of DevRel and Office of Open Source at Lambda Test. I'm here at Eurostar 2023, and we have a special guest with us today, Anne Marie, all the way from Sydney, Australia, with us.
Hi there, hi everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm having an absolutely fantastic time at Eurostar 2023. It's been amazing.
Great.
It's been an amazing
All the way
experience.
from long travel?
Well, you know, it's kind of used to it when you're in Australia. Everywhere is long travel, right?
Yeah.
You've been there yourself.
I second that. Yeah. So, Anne Marie, thanks for coming. And I have a few questions that the community has always wanted to ask if they ever met any thought leaders in the testing space. And I have a few of them. I would like to ask a few of them. Right?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. First one is all about the digital transformation, right? So it's a buzzword everywhere, and it's been the focus for a lot of companies and enterprises. And my question to you is, what in your opinion should the enterprises do to put testing at the center of digital transformation strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, we've got to understand what we mean by digital transformation. As he says, it's a buzzword, and there's a lot of nuance in exactly what that means. I think there's transformations happening all the time within our organizations. That is the only constant we have right now, is the fact that there is constant change. And I think, you know, for companies that really value quality, we have to, as you said, bring that into the center stage. But I think, you know, it really starts with that senior leadership and having those conversations at a senior level about what is quality for them and what do they really value. And I think people tend to put sort of quality in a box over there, and we'll say, okay, we'll just hire a quality person to solve the quality problem.
Okay.
And was like, then we can just wash our hands, we'll let the quality person do all the work, and we can go
over the wall. Yeah.
and we can do all the kind of engineering type thinking, but they can solve the quality problem. And I think the fundamental problem there is that quality is everyone's responsibility, and that includes leadership. And the leadership is responsible for making decisions about quality. And what they can do and what leaders can do is they can create that space in order to have conversations about quality all the time. So I think the typical thing is they leave quality as an afterthought, but it's like you have the right people at the table at the start in any of these digital transformations to bring those conversations about quality. And how much do we need to do, or what do we not need to do? Like, are we overgilding the lily here and trying to do too much in a quality space? So it's those conversations about, you know, what is just and good enough, and how do we bring that in so it's not a big lumpy thing at the end, but it's a constant thing all the way through.
Fantastic. I think what's more important here is quality is everyone's responsibility, which I think everyone knows. But what's more important is inclusive of leadership, and I think that is something that everyone is missing. So it's everyone's responsibility. There you go. Thanks, Anne Marie. That was cool, and slightly related to digital transformation again. How should enterprises look at strategizing automation in their testing? So we spoke about overall quality and how deep automation should play and impact the overall strategy of digital transformation.
I mean, I think, look, there are so many amazing technologies out there. We'd be crazy not to use them, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, with this, sometimes we get caught up in ideology about sort of manual or automation, and it's really all one thing. We can't kind of just do too much automation or too little. We need to have that conversation from day one about automation and how to bring it in. And I think there's so much value we can get from tools that we can build in. But I think the other thing is that I've found over the years that's really important about automation is that it's a unifier. You know, if you think about automation and tooling, it's something that everyone can really have a conversation about, you know, and it's a really great way of unifying with other engineers and SRE about how do we improve quality. It's something that they can identify with. It's something that they can associate, and they feel valuable in that context. So for me, I find test automation a great way to connect with engineers and to have those vital conversations about how do we improve quality at a code level, and also, how do we speed up the stuff that doesn't need to be done manually all the time? Like, how do we do, things like everyone acknowledges we shouldn't be doing load performance testing manually, right? Like, it's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I think, like, how do we do that? Again, for me, it's about having those conversations at a senior level. Like, you need a budget. Like, these are just basic things. If you're going to invest in tooling, you need to have a budget, and you need to be able to negotiate, especially at enterprise level, all those different levels about, going through security, compliance, all these things are really, really important in order to get a tool approved within an organization. You've got to be able to navigate those aspects. So think about not just, is the tool a good thing, but how are you going to get the process through the organization? Who do you need? The tick of approval? Are the legal lawyers? The security? All these things are really, really important. So, to be honest, choosing the tool is just a small bit. It's like all that other stuff that you've got to consider, and think about that up front. Like, it can take a long time before a tool gets approved in a large organization. So,
I second that. Can't agree more than that. And speaking of, you interestingly touched upon a lot of things like the SRE as a role.
yeah.
And then you spoke about security, load testing, performance. So my question to you would be, what would be your favorite testing types in the various different non-functional testing we have, or cross-functional, as Sarah from TalkWorks would call in Australia? It could be anything like reliability, accessibility, performance. So which one's your favorite? And which one you advocate the most for?
Look, I am fascinated by the SRE space, I have to say.
Okay.
Really enjoy, I guess I love the hacking aspect, I don't code that well,
Okay.
but I hack really, really well, and
wow.
That's why I'm a big ChatGPT fan. Helps me hack badly.
ChatGPT. Okay.
But so just to give you an example, recently we're looking at SLOs in the SLO space, and all the teams in this organization were creating their own SLOs, and it turned out we had so many SLOs that we couldn't see the wood from the trees. So nobody was actually looking at the SLOs to see whether these SLOs were valuable or not.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, we need a massive dashboard here to be able to make this really clear to senior leadership that, these SLOs, what's happening in the SLO space. And I ended up going and just teaching myself a bit of Python, getting the Datadog API, downloading and connecting to the API, and creating an automated dashboard in order to be able to do that. And I used ChatGPT to help me just get some basic structures to actually get that picked up, right? So, there's some amazing things that you can do to learn, and I think that there's so much value about visualizing the state of quality that we can help, in that space. And often teams don't have time to do that type of work, or they're too busy, or it's just not high enough in the value scale to justify, but then as quality people, that's a huge value add that we can bring, and showing people, look, if you have something like this, like how useful it is, and everyone goes, oh wow, that's amazing, that's really cool, let's do that. And then they take it on and they start owning it. And so it's like, to me, it's like just showing them a little bit of a glimmer of possibility, and then they can take it on and do it. That's it, the ray of hope. Nice way of putting it, yeah.
Okay. Well, interestingly, yesterday when I was interviewing Marit, she was saying her favorite was reliability testing. Same in SRE space.
There you go.
That's cool. Thanks, Anne Marie. That was fantastic. And talking about reliability space.
Yep.
And speaking about, so we spoke about testing, and then about leadership, and then a little bit about the non-functional testing, your favorite area. And it's a fun fact, or it's a fact that we not know about Anne Marie, that we learned that she likes hacking. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
That's okay.
And next question that I have is to understand more about the quality coach.
Yeah.
And it's a term, it's a role that's quite often heard in the agile testing space. But then, how do I know if I'm a quality coach or not? I've been in the testing space, and I'm sure people watching would be at some stage in their experience, maybe 10 years, 5 years, or does it need a certain amount of experience, or what are the attributes that you look for in a quality coach?
Yeah. So I hear a lot of people calling themselves quality coach, and that's not necessarily my idea of what a quality coach is. So I think it's a great question. I think it's okay to have different interpretations of what a quality coach is, by the way. I mean, if it works, the title works for you, just go for it. But the way, maybe if I tell you how it evolved, the concept evolved for me. I was working in an organization, and there were testers who were working embedded in teams. And what the testers discovered was, as they were working with the teams, the developers and the engineers started absorbing the information from the testers. So, for example, the types of bugs that the testers were finding, the developers started going, oh, I can actually prevent those from happening. And without actually being told, naturally this situation came where the tester had less and less work to do. And I remember that distinctly, this one day, this tester came to me and she said, I've got nothing to do. I've done myself out of a job. And I was like, oh, wow, that is such an amazing place to be, that your team is so self-sufficient in their quality that you're not really needed anymore. And I think from that point on, I could see that you actually have someone who's with the team, but not necessarily actually doing the work, because the team is able to do their own, is owning the quality, and they're confident enough about taking ownership of quality all the time. But they still need somebody to come along and help them, maybe when they get stuck. Or, I think of it like, in a coaching team, when you've got a high-performing team, these high-performing soccer teams or football teams, they still have coaches, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And they're still amazing people, but they need someone to come along and help them along the way. So when I think about a quality coach, there's a certain level of maturity that the team has that allows them to do that type of work. So the quality coach isn't exactly doing any testing. That's one side. If you're doing a lot of testing, you're not really in that quality coach role, right? So if you want to talk it in black and white terms, you could think of a bit like an internal consultant, maybe, someone like that who's coming in and supporting the teams, but the team is owning themselves the quality, and they are taking responsibility for all the test automation. They're responsible for SLOs, for observability, for strategy and support. So they're actually owning the whole thing themselves. And really, what I find a lot of quality coaches do is they're looking for gaps. Like, what is not working, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be improved. And they're coming and helping the team identify those gaps. And then, as I said, it's very similar, like identifying the gaps, providing a bit of data to help the team sort of see the problem, and then the team takes on that problem and goes to solve the problem. So, in a way, they're sort of like, they're helping the team see sort of how to move forward in quality improvement.
Got it.
So that's the sort of role I have been working with internally with the team. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that clears a lot of doubts that I had in my mind.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. And is that something, a 2-minute, 3-minute version of your book? Anne Marie, can you talk a bit about it?
Oh, it's so funny, because this book, I've been trying to write this book for like 10 years, right? So this is like 10 years worth of material in my head that I keep meaning to put down on paper. And what kept on happening was, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I kept on rewriting the first third of the book.
Oh, okay.
I get to a third of the book and just go, no, it's not good enough, and I'd start again. And I realized after the third time that I was never going to finish this book.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to take an agile approach to book writing. I'm going to write it in the form of an online book, and I'm just going to do a chapter every month, and I'm going to force myself to post something once a month. Good or bad, it's good enough, out it goes to the audience. And that is how that evolved. That's why I put that book out there. And it's been amazing, because it's an evolution of ideas. And that's the way it should be, right? All these ideas are never one moment in time. And if I go and look back on older writings on my blog, like, I nearly cringe at some of the stuff I've written in the past, right? But I leave it there because it reminds me that everything evolves over time, and we're there to learn, we're there to grow, and you know, we take the good and the bad. Whatever.
It's 10 years of experience, so I'm sure.
I tell you what, it's more than 10 years. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Is it already available for purchase?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just go AnneMarieCharrett.com is my website. You can go there and you can sign up for a free trial, have a go and have a look at the premium content. And then there's other free content as well. That's, as I said, it's all the old content's there as well. You can have a look through. And you basically get an article once a month if you're on premium. And then I post a newsletter out as well, which sort of talks about community, you know, things that are happening in the community, or, you know, previous posts that I found interesting, or articles that I found really interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
amazing.
Yeah, enjoy it. It's good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So folks, we will put down a link to the website, and yeah, you could go ahead and subscribe if you're someone who's aspiring to be a quality coach or aspiring to be in a test leadership role. I think that's something that shouldn't be missed out. Cool. So talking about the test leadership, and I have a question here which is a must ask. If you had to pick one KPI that CXOs and upper management should track religiously when it comes to testing, that could be.
Comes to testing itself. Okay, I thought you were going to ask on quality testing. Okay, that's a really different.
Make it broad.
Okay,
Yeah,
quality's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, you know, if I look at it from, it's really important to understand what the organization values in order to be able to make that decision. I find there, over time, I've had a love-hate relationship with metrics and KPIs. I remember going through an era, a time where all metrics were bad. You must not have metrics. They are the devil's work. And I find that conversation really unhelpful with CTOs. They kind of, you know, they might even intellectually understand where I'm coming from and agree with me. But at the end of the day, they need something to help them understand how to move forward. And they have to report to their senior management about something. And they're not going to give a little philosophical lesson about why metrics are not valuable. So I have changed a lot in my thinking around metrics, in the sense that we really do need to understand what is a valuable metric for an organization. And I think it does change depending on the organization. You can't do a one-size-fits-all. But I do think that from a testing perspective, test coverage is actually not a bad metric to help people understand how they're doing. But really, you know, if you're more and more, when I look at metrics, I like to have a diversity of metrics.
Okay.
Another massively important metric is team engagement and how confident the team feels about deploying what they're deploying. And, you know, that is a qualitative metric that maybe you can have to help get a sense of how confident a team is feeling about the features they're deploying. And that, I think, is really valuable as well. So don't just go for one KPI or one metric. Go for a diversity. Nicole Fosgren talks about this in Accelerate, and she's done some recent research on a framework called the SPACE framework.
Yeah.
And that really looks at having a diversity of metrics, and also things like sense of team belonging and team, you know, sense of being valued are part of the metrics that she suggests. So I think that's a very powerful way of looking at metrics, and I think that, you know, if you can do that within your organization, that's a really good thing to be doing. So
yeah, that's great. I think diversity of metrics. I think that's a wonderful talk title.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I think
Off you go, Manoj, you can do that one.
I'll try my best, and you'll be the first person who could review and help me.
Okay,
Fix
fair
it up.
enough.
Cool. Folks, we are almost at the end of the questions that we had to ask Anne Marie, and last but not the least, TestMu 2023 is coming up, and Anne Marie is also our keynoter.
Yes.
And any trailer or teasers that you want to talk about?
Yeah, look, one of the things I'm really passionate about at the moment is leadership in the quality space. I think it's really challenging at the moment. Quality is really challenging at the moment in the and I think leadership is so vital and important at this time. I think we have so much change happening. I mean, you just look around at the technologies and frameworks that are constantly coming out of our ears all the time, trying to keep up with the rate of change. Society changes, social changes, upheavals, everything. I think it's really essential that quality has a place at the table at senior leadership, and this is about as a leader, how do you create that space? How do you create space for automation? How do you create space for product? And how do you create spaces so that your teams can thrive and grow and feel a sense of well-being? So that's my happy spaces when I'm building teams that have that, and I'll be sharing some of the examples and experiences of how that has worked for me and not worked, what I've done wrong, right? Because that's really important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that'll be a fantastic one.